Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whatever time it is, wherever in the world it is that you are. Welcome once more to another live stream of Alexandra Mayer's Live, page by page reading and commentary of the Bible, Modern English Version. Now, where we left off was Leviticus 14, and that went over cleansing lepers. And what was that all it went over? Let's see. Yeah, cleansing lepers, diagnosing lepers. Apparently, back in these biblical times, there was some sort of a disease going around that was negatively impacting the society. So the priest pretty much played the role of a doctor and essentially had to diagnose people with leprosy, determine whether or not certain symptoms were in actuality leprosy. Even went into the sterilization of clothing and the cleansing or the proper cleansing of clothing to avoid whatever this illness or disease was in this times. So today we're going to go into Leviticus 15, which is the law about bodily discharges, which should be interesting. Here we go. I will provide my commentary as I feel necessary. The Lord spoke to Moses and to Aaron, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and say to them, When any man has a discharge out of his body, his discharge is unclean. This is the instruction for his uncleanliness in his discharge, whether the discharge from his body flows or his body is stopped up by his discharge. It is his uncleanliness. Every bed on which the man with the discharge lies shall be unclean, and everything on which he sits shall be unclean. Whoever touches the bed shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until the evening. And whoever sits on anything where the man sat who has the discharge shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until the evening. And whoever touches the body of him who has the discharge shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until the evening. If the man with the discharge spits on someone who is clean, then he shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until the evening. Any saddle on which the man with the discharge rides shall be unclean. Whoever touches anything that was under him shall be unclean until the evening. And he who carries any of those things shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until the evening. Whomever he who has the discharge touches has not rinsed his hands in water, he shall wash his clothes and bathe in water and be unclean until the evening. The earthen vessel that he who has the discharge touches shall be broken, and every vessel of wood shall be rinsed in water. When he who has the discharge is cleansed of his issue, then he shall count to himself 7 days for his cleansing, and wash his clothes, and bathe his body in running water, and shall be clean. On the 8th day he shall take 2 turtle doves or 2 pigeons, and come before the Lord at the entrance of the tent of meeting, and give them to the priest. And the priest shall offer them, one for a sin offering, and the other for a burnt offering. And the priest shall make atonement for him before the Lord for his discharge. If any man has a seminal emission, then he shall wash his body in water and be unclean until the evening. Every garment and all leather on which there is seminal emission shall be washed with water and be unclean until the evening. If a man lies with a woman and there is an emission of semen, they shall both bathe themselves in water and be unclean until the evening. If a woman has a discharge and the discharge from her body is blood, she shall be set apart for 7 days, and whoever touches her shall be unclean until the evening. Everything that she lies on her menstrual impurity shall be unclean. Also, everything that she sits on shall be unclean. Whoever touches her bed shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until the evening. Whoever touches anything on which she sits shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until the evening. Whether it is the bed or anything on which she sits, when he touches when he touches it, he shall be unclean until the evening. If any man lies with her, and her menstrual impurity is on him, he shall be unclean for 7 days, and every bed where he lies shall be unclean. If a woman has a discharge of blood for many days, not at the time of her menstrual impurity, or if she has a discharge beyond the time of her impurity, all the days of the discharge shall be in uncleanliness, as in the 7 days of her impurity. She shall be unclean. Every bed that she lies on, all the days of her discharge, shall be for impurity, and whatever she sits on shall be unclean, as the uncleanliness of her menstrual impurity. Whoever touches those things shall be unclean, and shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until the evening. But if she is cleansed of her discharge, then she shall count to herself 7 days, and after that she shall be clean. On the 8th day she shall take 2 turtle doves or 2 pigeons and bring them to the priest at the entrance of the tent of meeting. The priest shall offer one for a sin offering and the other for a burnt offering, and the priest shall make atonement for her before the Lord for her unclean discharge. This is actually incredibly interesting to me that the Bible goes into this because for both men and women, the discharge could be a sign of venereal disease. So, being that you have a part of the Bible that goes over this, this actually would save a populace from there being a mass spread of whatever STD may be in play here, outside of, for men, regular ejaculation, and women, your regular menstrual cycle. All right, let's continue. Thus you shall separate the children of Israel from their uncleanliness, so that they do not die in their uncleanliness by defiling my tabernacle that is among them. This is the law for him who has a discharge, and for him who has a seminal emission, and thus becomes unclean, and for her who is sick from her menstruation, and for him who has a discharge, for anyone male or female, and for the man who lies with a woman who is unclean. Okay. So tomorrow we will go into Leviticus 16 and we will continue from there. I do appreciate anyone and everyone out there who chose to listen to tonight's Bible reading and commentary. I am traveling right now. So if I skip a day or two, don't get upset because I will be back. So take care. Have a wonderful evening. Good night. Bye-bye.